Hi, I'm Courtney, and this is how saying no to my sister cost me everything. She smashed my laptop a week before my thesis was due. Then my parents laughed and called me selfish. That was just the beginning. What they didn't tell me was that they had already used my name to open credit lines, sign leases, and collect money behind my back. My identity became a family project, except I wasn't invited. Why did my mother defend the person who destroyed my future? Why did everyone pretend nothing happened? And if silence is protection, then what happens when I finally start talking? It was just after 5:30 when I slipped my key into the lock and nudged open the door to my apartment. The late spring sun filtered through the dusty blinds, casting thin stripes of light across my floor. I kicked off my shoes and scanned the space, already sensing something was off. The television was on, loud, and the scent of reheated Alfredo sauce drifted in from the kitchenette. I didn't even have to turn the corner to know. "Hey, you're home early," Valora called out from the couch, her feet up, my leftovers in her lap. She didn't even look away from the screen. I dropped my bag by the door, took a breath. "I didn't know you were coming by." She waved a fork in the air. "Yeah, I figured I'd crash for a bit. Wi-Fi's out at my place." She wasn't asking. She never asked. Then, as if reading from a script she'd rehearsed, Valora added, "So, how much do you have saved up now? For the apartment, I mean." That tone, sweet but slippery, made my skin itch. I didn't answer right away. She glanced at me. "I'm just wondering, might be time I get serious about a place too. Maybe a downtown condo. I saw one yesterday. Cute, decent view, little expensive." I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "How much is the deposit?" $7,000. She said it like it was nothing. "Just a hold. You know how fast those places go." There it was. The ask, packaged like a casual chat. I kept my face still. "I can't lend that." She blinked. "What?" "I need that for my own closing costs. You know that." Valora set down the container, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. "Seriously? Come on, Court. It's not like you're buying a castle." I stared at her, reminded of all the canned soup, all the side gigs I'd taken for that savings. My jaw tightened. "I'm sorry, I can't." She scoffed, rising to her feet. "Wow. So you're selfish now?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Later that night, as I settled into my worn-out chair and opened my laptop, a notification pinged. A message from Mom. "Valora." She said no. Can you believe that? After everything? 2 minutes later, the phone rang. I knew I shouldn't have picked up, but I did. "Courtney," Mom began, her voice low and edged with disappointment. "She's your sister. You should help her when she's down." I inhaled sharply. "Mom, you don't even know what she asked for." "She needed help," she cut in, "and you refused." "She wanted $7,000. I'm trying to buy my first place." Mom sighed, tired and judgmental all at once. "Selfishness isn't how I raised you." The line went dead. I sat there for a long while, the hum of the refrigerator louder than anything else in the room. My laptop, scratched and slow, buzzed under my hands. My couch sagged in the middle. The walls were bare, save for one tiny painting I'd gotten from a thrift store. Meanwhile, Valora's Instagram was probably lighting up with filtered lattes and soft focus selfies. She always found a way to fall upward. Makeovers, retreats, restarts. And Mom praised her every single time. I remembered Christmas. I'd bought gifts from my bonus check. Thoughtful, modest, real. Valora gave a speech about togetherness and left with most of the leftovers. She hadn't brought a thing. Still, everyone clapped. I opened my calendar. A reminder popped up. Loan meeting, 10 days. 10 days until I sat across from a banker and justified my credit score, my savings, my value. I needed everything to go right. The next morning, I woke up early, my stomach in knots. I made coffee, booted up my laptop, and sat at the table. Footsteps in the hall. The door creaked. Valora stood there, dressed better than usual. Hair done, makeup just right. She didn't say hello. You sure you're okay with saying no to me? She asked, casually flipping through a magazine I'd left on the counter. Yes, I replied, steady. She leaned against the wall. Just remember who helped you through that breakup last year. I smiled, but not kindly. And you moved in for 3 months without paying rent. Let's not forget that either. Her eyes narrowed. She pushed off the wall, walked out, and slammed the door behind her. I stared at my screen, heart thudding, hand still on my coffee mug. The sound of shattering plastic came a moment later, followed by silence I never wanted to hear again. There was a beat of silence after the crash. Not long. Just enough for my heartbeat to sync with the hum of the refrigerator again. Then came the echo of footsteps retreating down the hall and the distant click of the stairwell door slamming shut. My breath caught somewhere in my throat, held hostage by disbelief. I didn't move, not right away. My body went still, like I could undo it all by staying perfectly quiet, like the universe would reverse the moment if I just waited long enough. But nothing reversed. I finally stood, my knees feeling stiff as I approached the damage. The laptop lay on the floor like a wounded animal, screen cracked from corner to corner, keys twisted or missing entirely, wires exposed like nerves. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just squatted down beside it, running a thumb along the edge of the screen where it had split. A shard of plastic snapped off in my hand. I set it gently on the table like a piece of a broken heirloom. Valora had done it. Deliberately. With zero hesitation. Oops! Maybe next time say yes, she'd said as casually as someone commenting on the weather. And in that moment, my reality shifted. Not just about her, but about what I'd been pretending family meant. You didn't just break a laptop, I whispered to the empty room. You broke me. The room didn't respond. Later, after I'd swept the remains into a box and set it in the corner, I picked up my phone and called Mom. My fingers shook, not from fear, but from the adrenaline that came when everything inside you screamed, "This is wrong," and you needed someone, anyone, to confirm it. She picked up on the third ring, the sound of a TV playing in the background. "Mom," I said, steadying my voice. "Valora broke my laptop, threw it on the floor." She didn't gasp, didn't even pause. "It's just a device, Courtney. You're being overly dramatic again." The laugh I let out surprised even me. It was short, hollow. "You don't think that's a little excessive?" Maybe she was frustrated. Maybe you pushed her. You two have always butted heads. "She destroyed my only computer, Mom. You're not even going to ask why she did it?" "Look," she sighed, as if she were the victim here. "You've always had a tendency to blow things out of proportion. You need to let some of this go." I hung up. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't yell. I simply pressed the red button and placed the phone face down on the table. That night, the rain started. Soft at first, just a whisper against the window panes. Then steady, like the city itself had exhaled and decided to cry in my place. The next morning, I couldn't stay inside. My apartment, once my sanctuary, now felt invaded. So I grabbed my coat, wrapped my scarf tight, and walked to a small cafe 2 blocks away. The kind of place that knew your name after the third visit, and didn't ask questions if you sat alone for an hour. I ordered a black coffee and sat near the window, watching the wet world go by. I'd just taken my first sip when I heard my name. "Courtney?" I looked up. Mr. Laird, my neighbor from the floor below, stood there with a gentle smile and a folded umbrella dripping onto the tile. "Morning," I said, surprised. "Didn't mean to interrupt," he added quickly. "Just wanted to check. Your mom mentioned something about you needing help with rent?" I blinked. "Help with rent?" He nodded. "Yeah, she said you were behind and might need a little support. Said you were too proud to ask. I was gonna wire over $400, but I didn't get the account details yet." I never asked for that." He frowned. "No? Huh. She made it sound urgent, said it came straight from you." My stomach turned. It wasn't just Valora. My own mother had used my name, my circumstances, to solicit money without my knowledge. What else had she told people? What else had she done under the blanket of helping me? I thanked Mr. Laird, excused myself politely, and walked out into the drizzle. My coat soaked quickly, but I didn't notice. The betrayal burned warmer than the cold. Back at home, I dried off, changed, and sat at my desk. What was left of my laptop sat in the corner box, but I still had the external monitor. A salvaged hard drive. Maybe, just maybe, I could pull something. I connected everything with shaking fingers. The external screen flickered, then stabilized. A dull gray desktop appeared, then a blinking folder. Private. I hesitated, then clicked. Inside were files, dozens. PDF statements, emails, a copy of a credit card agreement. None of them mine. None. And every single one had my name at the top. I stared at the folder for longer than I should have, afraid of what I'd find if I opened it further, and what it would mean if I didn't. My hand hovered over the trackpad before I clicked open one of the PDFs. It was a scanned credit line agreement, complete with my full name, address, and social security number. The signature at the bottom tried to mimic mine, but it leaned too far right and curved in places I never curved. It was close enough to fool a stranger, but not me. The rest of the documents followed the same pattern. Bank correspondence I'd never seen, email threads using addresses I didn't recognize, a loan application from a bank I'd never even walked past. Each one lined up like dominoes, falling in a neat row of fraud. All filed under my name. Subject lines like, auto payment confirmation, your credit limit was increased, and account updated, glared at me in black and white. Someone had built a life with my details. Someone who knew me just well enough to pretend. 2 days later, I walked into a small credit union near the edge of downtown. The same name printed at the top of one of the PDFs. The teller was in her early 30s. Kind eyes, blonde hair pulled into a tight bun. I handed over my ID and the printed copy of the loan agreement. I believe someone may have used my identity to open an account here, I said, keeping my voice as calm as possible. She studied the document, then my ID, then the screen in front of her. Her face shifted slightly, the kind of micro-expression that told me she knew I was about to learn something I wasn't going to like. You're here about the $14,000 line of credit? I blinked. Excuse me? She turned her screen slightly so I could see. It was opened 18 months ago. Application completed online. Account verified and disbursed within 48 hours. Funds sent to an external checking account, ending in 87. That wasn't my account. Everything matched. My name, SSN, phone number. But the signature, they had archived it digitally. It was the same forgery. My heart slowed, not sped. I wasn't panicked. I was cold, focused. I thanked her, asked for a printed record, and left without raising my voice. Outside, it had started to drizzle again. Seattle didn't storm. It simmered. That gray mist seemed to follow me the whole walk back. That night, I stopped by my mailbox on the way in. A thick envelope sat inside from the mortgage lender I'd applied to 2 weeks ago. My hands were still damp as I tore it open on the elevator ride upstairs. Denied. Excessive outstanding credit balance. I leaned against the wall of the elevator and let the letter hang in my hand like something dirty. I had worked for 6 years to build that score, paid every bill on time, skipped vacations, skipped takeout, skipped Christmas gifts 1 year, all so I could buy my future, and someone else had already mortgaged it. Back in my apartment, I didn't cry. I got to work. I laid everything out, the files, the documents, the dates. I created a digital archive on a new USB drive I bought that afternoon. Locked, encrypted, backed up. I named the folder Truth Backup 1 and made 2 additional copies, one of which I mailed to a friend I trusted like a sibling. I wasn't confronting anyone yet. I wasn't ready. But I was preparing. You thought I'd scream? I murmured into the silence. I'm done screaming. The following morning, my phone buzzed while I was making oatmeal. The voicemail transcription popped up mid-bite. "Hey, sweetheart, heard you're poking around the bank. Just don't let things blow out of proportion. She didn't mean harm." My spoon clinked against the bowl. It was Mom. Calm. Like we were talking about misplacing a casserole dish at Thanksgiving. I stared at the screen for a long time, then hit play. Her voice was even, almost rehearsed, detached in a way that made my stomach turn. I played it again. Slower, still the same tone. She knew. She'd known something. Maybe not everything, but enough. Enough to pretend it wasn't serious. Enough to hope I'd let it go. And she'd made that decision long before I found the folder. That's when it clicked. The theft didn't happen behind her back. It happened with her eyes wide open. I didn't sleep much after that voicemail, not out of fear, out of something sharper, like clarity that cuts instead of comforts. I listened to her words on a loop, then deleted them. I knew what she said. But more importantly, I finally understood what she meant. 3 days later, the second letter arrived from the bank, confirming everything: the forgery, the account, the signature that wasn't mine, but legally tied to me. I folded the page, slid it into a folder with the rest, and booked a ride to my mother's house. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't even going to explain. I was going to present. The sun was starting to dip when I stepped out of the cab in front of the old house in Linwood. The air smelled like wet pine and gasoline. The porch light hadn't turned on yet. I didn't knock. I walked straight in. Dinner was still warm on the stove. Valora was in the kitchen, slicing a piece of pie like she'd earned it. She glanced up and smirked. "Well, look who found her voice," she said. "You storming in now? You used to be the quiet one." I didn't respond. I walked past her, into the dining room, and laid the folder flat on the table. Mom followed, wiping her hands on a towel. "Courtney, what's going on?" I pulled out the printed copy of the credit application and slid it forward. "Tell me which part of this I filled out," I said, "because apparently this is my signature." Valora's smile twitched. "Come on, you're making this a whole thing." "It is a thing," I said. "It's $14,000 of debt." Isolde stepped forward. "This was a misunderstanding. She needed help, that's all." "A misunderstanding?" I turned toward her. "You think using my social security number and faking my name is a misunderstanding?" "She didn't mean harm." "She meant convenience. That's what she always means." I pulled out the next sheet. Bank confirmation, then the next, account history, then the one that mattered most, an email thread accidentally forwarded to me. Valora's voice, recorded in a voice memo. "If she finds out, just say it was a mix-up." Then Mom's voice, clear and calm. "She won't. She doesn't dig deep. She freezes." I tapped play. Their voices echoed through the room, so matter-of-fact it was like hearing strangers. Valora's fork paused mid-air. Mom stopped moving entirely. The room was still. No yelling, no defense. Just silence. When the audio ended, I picked up each document one by one, restacked them into the folder. Mom tried to speak. "Let's talk about this calmly. You don't understand." "No," I said, louder than I'd meant to. "I understand now. Fully." I turned toward the door. Valora rolled her eyes. "Running again?" I stopped. "Not running. Backing out of the role you all cast me in." I didn't wait for a reply. Back at my apartment, I changed into something soft, washed my face, and made tea. The kettle whistled just as my email pinged. New message. No subject, no signature. "We need to talk. I've been through this too, and I have proof." I sat down slowly. My hands didn't shake. Turns out, I wasn't the first person Valora did this to. Just the first to stay quiet. I responded to the email before I even stood up from the kitchen table. My reply was short, professional, but firm. "Let's talk. I want to see what you have." That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I began pulling together every document I had, every file I'd recovered from the broken laptop, every bank notice, email confirmation, and loan detail. I printed them out at the public library the next day. One by one, people around me chatted, tapped keys, sipped on lattes, and I sat there in the quiet center of it all, building a paper trail like a lawyer preparing for war. When I was done, I slid the documents into a manila envelope and printed one label. For record. Private copy. 1. It felt heavier than paper when I tucked it under my arm. I walked across the street to the legal clinic connected to the university. I didn't have money for a high-priced attorney, but I didn't need that. I needed someone who knew how to take paper, truth, and pattern and turn it into motion. Inside, a student intern greeted me, then led me to a quiet meeting room where I handed over the envelope without speaking. I didn't need to explain, not yet. The documents could speak louder than anything I had left to say. Later that day, back home, I prepared another identical envelope. Same documents, same label. I paid extra at the post office to send it certified, signature required. The following morning, I received a delivery confirmation at 9:14 a.m. At 10:02, a text lit up my phone screen. "This is going too far, Courtney." It was from Mom. I stared at it for a long moment, then replied, "You taught me silence. Now learn what it sounds like when I speak without raising my voice." I turned my phone off after that, but silence didn't stay. That night, around 6:30, I got a notification from my bank. Fraud alert. I thought it was spam at first, then another popped up, unauthorized login attempt. I froze. I logged in through a secure browser, only to find someone had tried to access my secondary account, using a device linked to Valora's Apple ID. The same device she once used when she helped me set up direct deposit years ago. I called the bank immediately. After a 10-minute hold, a representative came on the line. "Are you authorizing anyone else to access this account?" I stared at the wall. "No, I stopped authorizing people the moment they stopped asking." He paused, then said, "We'll lock it now." When the call ended, I sat there for a full minute, hands still on the keyboard. Then I began shifting everything. Funds into a new trust account, passwords changed, alerts tightened. No more shared Wi-Fi. No more reused logins. I was done being careless with the borders of my life. I opened a spreadsheet. At the top, I typed, "Asset Recovery Plan." And just beneath it, they erased my laptop. I'll rewrite my name. By 10 p.m., my apartment was quiet again. I'd made soup, let it go cold, and poured it down the drain. I didn't need comfort food. I needed clarity. A soft ding pulled me back to the screen. New email. Subject, FYI. Did you consent to this credit card in 2021? It was from one of the interns I'd met at the clinic. There was a PDF attached. When I opened it, my chest went still. There it was. A credit card agreement. My name, my address, my social security number, a contract for a card I'd never held, an account I'd never seen, a signature that looked just enough like mine to pass at first glance. They hadn't just borrowed my future. They leased it to themselves in my name. I didn't forward the credit card contract, not yet. I printed it instead, 3 copies. One for my records, one for the legal clinic, and one I would sign under oath. 2 days later, I stepped into the notary's office just after 11. The receptionist offered a tight smile, slid a clipboard across the counter, and directed me to the end of the hallway. I handed over the signed affidavit, titled Affirmation of Fraudulent Identity Use, and watched as the notary flipped through each page with quiet, efficient scrutiny. She stamped it once, handed it back. "You'll want 3 copies." I already printed 4. That afternoon, I stopped by a FedEx location to overnight the affidavit to 3 different institutions: my bank, the credit bureau, and the police department's fraud division. The woman at the counter asked if I wanted tracking numbers. "No," I said, "just confirmation they were received." This wasn't about updates. This was about drawing a line. Later that evening, I sat down and composed an email to the city's records division. I attached all relevant documentation, contracts, forensic signature analysis, and notarized statements. I titled the email, Case File, Identity Misuse, Courtney Elise Harper. At the end, I wrote, "This is not just about damage. This is about recovery. I'm reclaiming my legal identity from my own blood." I hit send. The next morning, I took a rideshare across town to the leasing office for the condo I'd been watching for years. The one with the small balcony facing Lake Union and the open kitchen with sunlight that kissed every cabinet. The woman behind the desk recognized me instantly. "Oh, I remember you from the open house in January," she said, eyes bright. "You're Courtney Harper, right?" I nodded, heart cautiously lifting. She opened a file on her screen, then paused. Her tone softened. "I'm so sorry. It looks like your credit report didn't meet approval this quarter." There was a hum in my ears. Not anger, not even disappointment. Just stillness. Like I'd known it would end this way, even before I asked. I smiled, just enough to be polite, and thanked her for her time. On my way out, I passed a full-length mirror in the lobby. I paused. "They ruined what I waited 6 years for," I whispered to my reflection. "And I'm still standing." That evening, I opened a blank document and began drafting a new letter. I titled it, "Notification of Legal Boundary." I wrote it carefully, formally. No venom, no poetry, just facts. Effective immediately, due to the verified misuse of my personal and financial identity, I will no longer engage in financial, legal, or digital contact with Valora Harper or Isolde Harper. All communications must go through legal counsel. I printed 2 copies. One went into a fireproof lockbox beneath my bed. The other, I mailed the next morning. I didn't include a return address. "This isn't punishment," I wrote at the bottom. "It's protection." That night, just after I finished washing dishes, my phone rang. Unknown caller. I hesitated, then answered. "Ms. Harper, this is Drew from Lincoln Properties. I manage your building." "Yes?" "Someone came by this afternoon," he said. "Tried to change the name on your lease. Claimed you were moving out." I didn't blink. "Did you process it?" "Of course not. It didn't feel right. But I thought you should know." "Thank you," I said, and hung up. I stood in the middle of my kitchen, towel still in my hand, floor damp beneath my feet. I had drawn the line. They tried to erase it, with my name on their hand. 4 days passed before anything happened again. I spent them in routine, work, laundry, groceries. I didn't post. I didn't call. I didn't so much as like a comment online. Silence, I'd learned, was a powerful shield. But then a call came in, not from family, from a client. "Courtney, hey," she said, voice tentative. "We just had a few questions. There's been some stuff online. I'm sure it's nothing, but we've seen your name tagged on a few threads. Someone's saying you're emotionally volatile? Manipulative?" I sat straighter. "Where?" She hesitated. "Reddit. A private Facebook group. It looks like screenshots, but they're blurred. Out of context. We know how these things go. Still, we have stakeholders." I thanked her for the heads up and hung up. Then I searched. And there I was. My name, or at least my handle, twisted into gossip posts about toxic women in tech. One post read, "She's the kind who smiles to your face while deleting your work behind your back." I scrolled through the comments. A few people questioned the authenticity, but most didn't. That's how poison works. It doesn't need to be true. It just needs to be present. I began cross-referencing the accounts posting these stories. 2 were recently created. Both followed Valora and her old roommate. One even used the same profile picture from a Halloween party we went to in 2018. Valora dressed as Bad Karma, ironically. That same night, a voicemail popped up from a number I didn't recognize. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. "Courtney, it's Dana. From undergrad?" The voice was familiar, more tired than I remembered. "Someone sent me a file saying you were dangerous to work with. I didn't believe it, but I thought you should know. It's circulating." I played the message 3 times. The same phrases kept showing up. Manipulative, unstable, emotionally abusive. All planted, all vague, all effective. So I did what I do best. I documented. I created a Google Drive titled Defamation Response and began saving every screenshot, link, and timestamp. I built timelines. I listed suspected contributors. By midnight, I had 6 folders organized and backed up twice. But it wasn't over. The next morning, I woke to an Instagram notification. I'd been tagged in a story. The image? A fake message thread that looked like it was from me, edited to show me mocking someone's disability. The profile had my face, pulled from an old LinkedIn photo. The username was a variation of my own. The bio read, "She hides behind emails. We tell the truth." The account had gone live 2 days after I'd filed the affidavit. I reported it. Instagram responded with a generic message, "We'll review within 24 to 48 hours." I posted a statement on my professional page. "This account is fraudulent. I have submitted legal documentation. My name is not your playground." Then I logged off. I didn't panic. I didn't vent. I compiled. I opened a new spreadsheet, Digital Hostility Log. Each row held a name, a link, a source. I printed 2 copies and mailed one to the legal rep at the clinic. Then I drafted a cease and desist. Nothing dramatic, just fact, tone, and intent. They think I'll play defense, I told myself. They forgot who wrote the code for the wall they're trying to break. That night, as I brushed my teeth, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. When I checked it later, the voice was male. Measured, slightly familiar. "You're not the only one she's done this to," he said. "I can prove it, but I won't talk over the phone." It took me a moment to place the voice. A pause, a tilt of the head, a flicker of memory. But when I did, it locked into place like a puzzle I didn't know had been missing a piece. The man on the voicemail was Ian. Ian Manning, Valora's ex. The one she'd ghosted after 6 months of dating and 2 months of living rent-free in his condo while pretending she was apartment hunting. I didn't call him back. Not yet. I needed to be sure of my next move. I had one priority first: clean up the lie she hadn't counted on me hearing. That Saturday morning, I was sipping coffee when an email landed in my inbox from my cousin Diana. The subject line read, "So excited to see you this weekend." Weekend, I scrolled. A family celebration was being hosted at Mom's house, some early summer thing, a mix between Memorial Day hangover and Father's Day precursor. There were 50 names on the guest list. Mine wasn't one of them. I texted Diana, "Hey, what's the event?" Her reply came fast. "The backyard thing. Food, drinks, cornhole. Wait, didn't you get the invite?" "Nope." "Oh, Aunt Isolde said you were busy." Of course she did. I didn't text back. Instead, I showered, pulled on a navy blue suit, gathered a slim black folder, and drove to Linwood in complete silence. The kind of quiet that sits in your chest like an anchor. I parked across the street, took 5 slow breaths, then walked in. The house buzzed with conversation, plastic cups clinking, someone's playlist floating in from the patio. When I stepped through the doorway, the sound thinned. Conversations paused, not entirely, but just enough to notice. Valora spotted me first. She walked over, solo cup in hand, that smile on her face she only used when cameras were pointed at her. "You weren't supposed to be here today," she said, all warmth, no welcome. "I know," I replied evenly. "I came for everyone else." Before she could speak again, I turned and walked toward the circle of chairs near the patio door, where our Aunt Marla was sitting, the oldest in the family, sharp-eyed and even sharper-tongued. "Can I borrow your ear for a second?" I asked her, already opening the folder. Inside were copies, financial records, transaction logs, statements of debt opened in my name and funneled into accounts Valora controlled. Marla didn't speak, she just read. Her face changed gradually, brows dipping, mouth tightening. What am I supposed to do with this? She asked finally. Whatever you want, I said. I just thought the family deserved facts before opinions. Across the room, Valora's voice rang out. She's bitter. She's making up lies again. I didn't flinch. I walked to the Bluetooth speaker set on the kitchen counter, tapped my phone, and let the audio file play. Valora's voice unmistakable. If she finds out, we'll just gaslight her again. And then Mom's. She always folds. No one spoke. Someone's fork clinked against a plate. I turned the volume down, slipped my phone back into my pocket, and looked around. No more silence, I said. That currency's expired. Valora tried again. You don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing, I answered. This isn't revenge. It's withdrawal. I walked past her, past Mom, past the cousins who had started whispering behind their cups. A godmother I hadn't seen since college leaned over and said softly, I had my doubts. I just didn't want to be next. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just nodded once. I don't want pity, I told her. I want distance. When I reached the door, the folder was empty. My hands, for once, were not. That night, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't family. It was a journalist. National, not local. She'd seen video clips from someone who'd recorded my confrontation. She asked if I had time for an interview. I saw what you did today, the message read. We're preparing a series on identity fraud within families. I want your voice. I sat back on the couch, phone resting on my palm, tea cooling beside me. If the truth needed a voice, it had mine now. And I wasn't whispering anymore. 3 days later, I woke up to a sound I hadn't heard in a while. My inbox dinging nonstop. I reached for my phone still half asleep, thinking it was spam. But it wasn't. It was everything else. 47 emails, 21 message requests, 3 voicemails, all from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Former coworkers, high school acquaintances, relatives I'd only seen on Christmases. The tone was the same in all of them. Disbelief, apologies, quiet horror. One stood out. My high school math teacher, Mr. Watkins, who once told me I'd never find success by being too quiet, wrote, We always knew you had backbone. The truth just gave you a megaphone. I didn't cry. I smiled. That afternoon, the article went live. Family fraud, when blood becomes a liability. The journalist had done her work. There were my photos, neutral, professional, next to screenshots of the forged documents, the email threads, the statement I filed with the police. It didn't just tell my story. It named names. It named banks. It named institutions that had failed to protect me. And it named Valora. There was no more ambiguity. No softening. The comment section exploded within hours. Former friends of Valora's chimed in. One coworker claimed she'd once tried to access a team leader's travel stipend. Another said Valora offered to help fill out their mortgage application and had asked to borrow their login credentials just to double-check. Her employer got tagged, repeatedly. Later that night, I got an email from a woman named Priya. She'd interned with Valora years ago. Thank you, she wrote. She almost ruined a coworker's visa years ago. Everyone knew something was off. No one said it out loud. Now they were saying it. The next morning, I got a DM from someone named Eleanor. She wrote, I think we need to talk. I've been where you are. We hopped on a video call that afternoon. Eleanor was calm, collected, and held up a stack of printed screenshots before I could even speak. DMs from Valora, bank statements, and most damning of all, a voice recording from 2 years ago. It was Valora bragging. You just use the system against itself. I mean, who really checks name changes on applications anyway? Then she laughed. Laughed like she'd figured out the cheat code to human decency. When the audio stopped, Eleanor leaned back. I kept it in case she ever turned on me. You didn't have to share this, I told her. She gave me a soft smile. I did, because I didn't the last time, and someone like you had to carry the cost. She offered to sign an affidavit. I accepted. After we hung up, I logged into my recovery dashboard. 3 more cases were marked, verified. Then a notification popped up. Subject: account access revoked. Decision: fraud confirmed. I closed my eyes. It wasn't over, but it was turning. I checked my email again, just to clear out the noise. And there it was. A message from Valora's number. So you're playing the victim? Let's see how you handle what's coming next. No subject, no context. Just the same tactic she'd always used. Control through confusion. I deleted it. 5 minutes later, another message landed. Different number, no name. She's losing grip. And I have more than screenshots. I have a confession. Want it? I read it once, then twice. She tried to smear my name. I was about to engrave hers in stone, under evidence. I replied to the unknown sender within minutes. Yes, I want it. The confession came as a voice recording, followed by screenshots of texts and a video clip dated 2 years back. Valora, sitting in someone else's apartment, talking too openly, too proudly, describing how people trust the familiar, and how a name isn't proof, it's a tool. I forwarded the file to my legal advisor at the university's clinic before the sun rose. By the time I arrived at the clinic later that morning, the assistant was already waiting with a printout of my updated case folder. My advisor, a woman with kind eyes and a sharper mind, skimmed through the new submission, then looked up. "This is more than enough," she said. "We'll proceed with the full litigation." I nodded. For once, I didn't feel nervous, not even numb, just steady. A court date was confirmed within 48 hours. 3 days later, the fallout began. Valora was called into her office's internal audit committee. Her HR director had received multiple anonymous tips citing identity fraud, falsified documents, and misuse of company systems. And, of course, the article. The same one that now had over 500,000 views and a comment section that read like an unredacted diary of Valora's greatest hits. According to someone I knew who worked in their accounting department, she tried to walk in like nothing was wrong. But they were waiting. She was questioned about expense reports, employee verifications, and discrepancies in her onboarding paperwork. Apparently, she claimed it was all an error. A clerical mix-up. By the end of the meeting, she was placed on unpaid suspension. Her employer issued a quiet internal memo. "We are investigating severe ethical violations." No names, but everyone knew. I didn't gloat. I didn't post. I wrote one line in my notebook and closed it. She weaponized my silence. I weaponized the truth. That same afternoon, I received a letter from the housing board. I'd been copied on a complaint that someone had submitted a rental application using my credentials. Again. It was Valora. She'd used an old scanned copy of my license to apply for a new lease, signed it as me, attached a fake pay stub, also under my name. The lease office flagged it as suspicious when the email used was a Gmail account ending in .project86, a name Valora once used on a shared gaming account. I sent it all to the investigator handling my financial identity case. Within 3 hours, I got a confirmation back. Attempted identity override filed. Under fraud review. The next morning, a new email arrived from the credit institution where I'd first discovered the fake credit card. Subject: fraud case number 449E8. Fully substantiated. Full liability reassigned. I stared at it. Then I hit print. Later that day, I opened LinkedIn and wrote a single post. No names. No accusations. They tried to erase me with my own data. I turned every file into a record they'll never outrun. I added a photo of my affidavit and the stamped court date, cropped so that it revealed nothing personal, but enough to show that this was real, that I hadn't imagined it, that someone like me, quiet, methodical, not confrontational, could win. Within an hour, it had 2,000 shares. By the next morning, 20,000. I received an invitation from my university's alumni council. They were launching a panel on digital ethics and wanted me to speak. I said yes, and I didn't do it for them. I did it for every time someone told me I was too nice to push back, or too sensitive to handle real-world heat. I did it for the girl who lost her laptop and her peace of mind in the same week. Late that evening, I was sipping tea when my phone buzzed again. A name I hadn't seen in weeks. One I wasn't expecting. Isolde. No subject, just a message. I need to speak, alone. I was wrong. But there's something else you should know. I read it once, then again. It wasn't an apology I was expecting. It was the secret buried underneath her silence. 2 weeks passed before I replied to her message. I didn't need time to think. I needed time to prepare. Emotionally, mentally. Because the truth is, when someone who's spent years minimizing your pain says they're ready to talk, what they really mean is they want to talk themselves out of accountability. Still, I said yes. We agreed to meet at a small cafe near Elliott Bay. Neutral ground. No kitchen memories, no echo of childhood discipline. Just a place with sea air and too much lemon in the tea. When I arrived, she was already seated at a table near the back, alone, dressed simply. She'd ordered a chamomile, and a cup was waiting across from her. Mine, I assumed. She looked up as I approached, eyes soft but cautious. "Thank you for coming." I sat but didn't touch the tea. She started quickly, as if afraid she might lose the nerve. "I didn't come to defend her. I came because you deserve the truth from me." I folded my hands and waited. "I knew about the account," she said quietly. "Not all of it, but I knew she was using your name. I told her to shut it down, clean it up before it got out of hand. I thought it was just one thing, one mistake." "You thought long enough to stay quiet," I replied. "That's the part you can't undo." She flinched, then nodded. I didn't want to believe it would get worse. I thought if I didn't say anything, it would go away. "That's not called protecting someone," I said. "That's called allowing it." Her lips trembled. She reached for her tea, then set it back down. "I don't know how to fix this," she said. "I really don't." "That's because it was never yours to fix," I told her. "It was mine, and I did it." The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was necessary. She looked up. "So where do we go from here?" "Forward," I said, but in different directions. I reached into my bag and pulled out an envelope. Inside was a formal letter, one I'd written, edited, and reviewed with legal support. It wasn't cruel. It was clear. Effective immediately, all personal, legal, and financial contact between us is concluded. I no longer consent to be tied to your emotional expectations. This isn't about hate. It's about health. I slid it across the table. She didn't open it. "I don't owe you silence," I added, "but I give you space." She reached for my hand. I moved it gently away. No malice, just truth. We sat there a little longer. She wiped her eyes with a napkin. I watched the harbor through the glass. Eventually, I stood. She looked like she might say something else, but the words didn't come, and I didn't wait for them. As I walked away from the cafe, something in my chest settled. Not pride, not triumph. Just peace. Quiet and earned. Forgiveness is not forgetting, and I remember everything, but I remember it as mine now, not theirs. Back at my apartment, a large envelope was waiting in my mailbox. No return address, but the paper was too thick to be casual. Inside was a photocopy of a lease agreement, dated 6 years ago. A rental in my name. Only I'd never seen that document before in my life. At the bottom, Valora's signature. My name. Her handwriting. A sticky note was attached. "Last one. Thought you should have it." Anonymous. Sometimes, even when you think it's over, the past sends you one last invoice. I didn't rush to react. I placed the lease copy gently back into the envelope, set it on the kitchen counter, and let it sit. Let it stare at me. Let it have the last word it thought it deserved. 3 weeks passed. During that time, I started a new job as a senior digital security consultant at a think tank. The office was sharp, modern, glass walls and clean desks. On my first day, a framed photo of me speaking at the alumni panel was already hanging near the entrance to my workspace. I hadn't submitted it. Someone from the event must have shared it with HR. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady, rooted, like my pulse finally matched the beat of my own life. One afternoon, in the middle of organizing case files for a new client, my assistant handed me a padded brown envelope. "No return address," she said. Inside was a silver USB. On the surface, written in Sharpie, "Remaining." I stared at it for a full minute before plugging it into my laptop. There were 3 files. The first, a scanned rental application dated 6 years ago. The same one from the mailed envelope, same forged name, same signature, my name, her handwriting. The second, a letter addressed to someone named Andrew. A confession, Valora writing, long-winded and apologetic, yet never actually taking responsibility. It read like a performance piece, a draft never sent. The third, grainy video footage. Valora, sitting at a patio table, cocktail in hand, laughing. "Courtney was always too soft. That's why it was so easy." She laughed again, leaned forward into the camera. "And if she ever figures it out, I'll just say it was love. Or family. That always works." I didn't flinch. I gathered every file into a folder, labeled it Final Addendum, and sent it to my attorney. I included one line in the email. "This is not a revenge file. It's the last time I carry her weight." After it's sent, I closed the laptop, removed the USB, and tossed it in the kitchen trash. Not dramatically, just purposefully. I deleted the folder from my hard drive. Not because I was afraid, but because I didn't need it anymore. Later that week, I was walking downtown and passed a building I once begged my parents to visit with me, a property I'd dreamed of owning in my 20s. They'd laughed, called it too ambitious, and more image than substance. There was a young family standing on the steps now, laughing as a realtor handed them keys. I didn't feel envy. I smiled, quietly, took a photo, not for anyone else, just for me. I didn't need to prove I belonged. I just needed to stand still long enough for the ground to stop shaking. That evening, I sat on my balcony with a glass of red wine, the city glowing like quiet confetti below. The wind was soft. A jazz station hummed low through the speakers. My phone buzzed once, unknown number. I silenced it. Then I opened my journal and wrote, "My story isn't about how they hurt me. It's about how I stopped letting them." And when the past came knocking, I didn't answer. I'd already moved,